This video is about an unholy alliance between the evangelical Christian or the Christian right and the New World Order. In the beginning, I'm playing a clip from a documentary called The Secret Right by Josh Reeves. He is not a Christian, but he has done a lot of research into the right wing or the right side of the New World Order, which a lot of people don't know it even exists, but it does. So I just wanted to explain that, and you should check out his documentary. It's very informative, and there is an article I'm going to read about that also. Although it is very hard to find a lot of information about this, I would also like to recommend We've Read the Documents in John Brisson for more updated information.
Hello, and welcome to The Secret Right, Volume 1. For those of you unfamiliar with my work and who I am, my name is Josh Reeves, and I'm a radio talk show host as well as a documentary filmmaker. And back in September of 2007, I began my radio show entitled The Global Reality with Josh Reeves. And on the second show that I ever hosted, I had a guest on my program by the name of Professor Peter Dale Scott. Now, during the course of this conversation, Professor Scott and I talked about, the various groups that are generally held in reverence as being part of the power structure in New World Order related research. And so we get to talking about the various groups that most people talk about, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission. And during that interview, Professor Scott said, there's actually a group that has maintained more power and control now than even the CFR, and they're a more secretive and powerful version of that is mostly made up of people on the right wing side of things, where traditionally the CFR and the Bilderberg group have been sort of the left end of the phony political spectrum, as it were. So immediately, things started going off in my mind, because at that time I'd been researching probably, off and on for the better part of 13 years. I thought I personally knew everything there was to know about New World Order research, and this was a group that I'd never come across. And so immediately I started going through and doing research and finding all these interesting things, and it began to really shatter my paradigm. Well, here we are in the beginning days of 2009, and I've sort of been on this trek since then of really uncovering the group, finding out who is this group, the Council for National Policy, what do they control, what have they been involved in the past, and what are the implications of a group like this operating in secrecy right in front of our faces. So this film is really it really is a testament. Not only that, it's sort of a diary of the work that I've done in my trek in the almost 2 years now of researching the group and tracking down all the best information I can. We've got a lot of news clips here that go back to the news archive. Some of this stuff has never been seen outside of 20 to 30 years. And so I thought it would be interesting to go through and sort of detail who they are and what they're behind, because this is one of the most important pieces of information in the whole realm and scope of research. If we're going to expose tyranny, we have to expose the entire tree. As I've talked about many times on my radio show, I don't see the New World Order as a pyramid as so much as I do you have a tree, and a tree of tyranny. And every one of these branches on this tree of tyranny is just important as the other. And as you'll see in this documentary film, you'll start to understand, as I do, that if you can control religion and the military-industrial complex and wars, you can control the people who print the money. So we'll go through and we'll detail who they are, what they've been involved in, as well as showing you what the media will and will not talk about in the realm and scope of this type of research. So sit back and get ready for The Secret Right, Volume 1.
I'm reading an article called The Unholy Alliance, Christianity in the New World Order by Eric Jewell. This is from February of 2002. So again, this is not new. It's just new to me, and maybe it's new to you. Most everyone has heard of these groups and some of the conspiracy theories surrounding them regarding the development of the New World Order, the Bilderbergs, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Central Intelligence Agency. Now imagine for a moment there is something to this, and there appears to be no lack of documented material justifying these theories. That would mean that almost every elevated level of business and government worldwide, men and women have infiltrated, become the controlling administrators, and are working to effectively control every aspect of the life of the world citizen. One aspect of this that has not been properly searched out is the religious connection. Surely, given that much of the world is religious, and in the currently reigning superpower nation of the U.S., predominantly Christian, then it would only make sense that these organizations have infiltrated the church itself and are also actively leading it into the New World Order as well. Do the world's leading Christian evangelicals have ties to these organizations? Yes, they do, and it is thoroughly documented. The Reverend Sun Myung Moon, the Moonies, and the Unification Church. For those few of you who are not familiar with the Reverend Moon, in the 60s, both he and his Unification Church were universally regarded as a dangerous cult. The abuse his followers suffered at the hands of their mind-manipulating master is indeed very well established. His claims include stating that Christ failed his mission and that Moon himself is the new Messiah, who is to come to fulfill the mission of God. He also claims that it is his mission to unite the world through uniting religious forces. But would it shock you to know that nearly all of the big-name Christian evangelicals have extremely strong ties to him? One such church leader and internationally recognized evangelical Christian, Jerry Falwell, readily admits that he accepted $2.5 million from Moon in 1994 in order to bail out his Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. This was funneled through a Moon organization known as the Women's Federation for World Peace, which has been chaired by Beverly LaHaye, wife of Timothy LaHaye, who is the popular co-author of the Left Behind Christian fictional, extremely fictional book series and well-known evangelical Christian. The Women's Federation for World Peace paid $3.5 million to the Christian Heritage Foundation, which in turn bought Falwell's $73 million debt and then frankly wrote it off. The Heritage Foundation then seems to have paid themselves a fee of $1 million for their trouble. Since that time, Falwell has spoken at many of Moon's functions, embracing the cult leader with unabashed reverence and friendship. Even writing from Moon's church confirms Falwell's comradeship with the new Messiah and his cult. Moon has ever been the guest speaker in mainline denominational churches in the past few years. Falwell further praised Reverend Moon, calling him an unsung hero to the cause of freedom who is to be commended for his determination and courage and endurance in support of his beliefs. According to official court records of a lawsuit that was filed in Bedford County Circuit Court, West Virginia, it was alleged that Falwell and an associate flew to South Korea January 9, 1994 to meet with Unification Church officials. This trip came shortly before Falwell was awarded the Moon money. Falwell stated openly, "If the American Atheist Society or Saddam Hussein himself ever sent an unrestricted gift to any of my ministries, be assured I will operate on Billy Sunday's philosophy. The devil's had it long enough and quickly cash the check." Yikes. Falwell is not the only evangelical reported to have accepted money from Reverend Moon. Other notable speakers for Moon's organizations and affairs receiving as much as $80,000 to $150,000 have included Ralph Reed, Beverly LaHaye, Gary Bauer, and Robert Schuller, well known for his Crystal Cathedral in Southern California and Hour of Power Positive Thinking television ministry. The Council of National Policy, the CNP. Okay, pause. This is something that I've never heard of until a couple years ago. And I would like to recommend John Brisson because he's the expert on this. And as long as I've been a Christian since 1984, a right-wing conservative Christian, I never ever heard of this. I never even heard CNN talk about this. Okay? The Council for National Policy. Another Moon-sponsored organization is the Council of National Policy, founded in 1981 by Tim LaHaye, the aforementioned co-author of the Left Behind book series. It is reported that he received $500,000 from a Mr. Bo Hee Pak, Moon's number one man and a former Korean CIA officer. Though a tape exists showing that LaHaye thanked Pak for the money, LaHaye never denied the charge but verbally attacked the sources, verifying the allegation with a barrage of insult. Other members of the CNP have included, I will read this really fast, Beverly and Lee LaHaye, also associated with Moon's CWA group, Gary Bauer, Bill Bright, James Dobson, Bob Dugan, Ron Godwin, Robert Grant, Rebecca Hagelin, Bob Jones III of Bob Jones University, Alan Keyes, outspoken ultra-conservative black talk show host, Dr. D. James Kennedy, Peter Marshall, Sam Moore of Thomas Nelson Publishing, Pat Robertson, founder of the Christian Broadcasting Network, Reverend Dwayne Motley, Ralph Reed, Oliver North, Phyllis Schlafly, Reverend Jim Woodall, John Ankerberg, Reverend E.V. Hill, Jay Sekulow, Pat Boone, Larry Burkett, Reed Larson, and many others. Oy. Some of the political leaders involved with the Moon-sponsored CNP group include Senators Jesse Helms, Don Nichols, Trent Lott, also representatives of Tom DeLay, Dan Burton, Bob Dornan. Pause again. This is from 2002. Okay, so fast forward to 20 years later, I would say we should know there's a lot of these current conservatives and evangelicals in this group. It's just that they're super secret and you can't even find out at this time. Looking into some of the CNP officers, we find not only just a strong association with Moon, but also powerful ties with the CIA and the Council on Foreign Relations, not to mention association with high-level Freemasonry, for which many conspiracy theorists have more than a mere elementary knowledge related to the New World Order. Another past president of the CNP is Rich DeVos, co-founder of Amway and a 33rd degree Mason. Coalition for Religious Freedom, CRF. Another past Moon organization was the Coalition for Religious Freedom, where again Tim LaHaye held a paid position as chairman. It was formed by LaHaye after Moon was arrested for tax evasion. Jerry Falwell, Jimmy Swaggart, James Robison, James Kennedy, and Rex Humbard have all served as executive committee members. Other notables to serve in Moon's CRF include Hal Lindsey, author of The Late Great Planet Earth, Paul Crouch, of course, head of the Trinity Broadcasting Network, Dr. D. James Kennedy, Don Wildman, to name a few. CRF President John Sills admits that CRF has received no less than $500,000 from Moon sources. In 1984, despite forces in government opposing the move, Moon was jailed for tax evasion, sentenced to 18 months in prison, and fined $25,000. In a CRF-sponsored rally, Tim LaHaye asked that people go to jail with Moon in protest. Tim LaHaye asked people to go to jail with Moon in protest. Moon, who says Jesus failed and he's the second coming of Christ. American Freedom Coalition. It's all sounding very American and freedom and family. Okay, American Freedom Coalition, led by Dr. Robert Grant and also a Mooney organization. In a period of a little over 2 years, they received nearly $6 million from Moon organizations and enterprises. This group includes Paul Crouch, Rex Humber, James Robinson, and many more. Names well known among the evangelical Christian community. Concerned Women of America, headed by Beverly LaHaye, the wife of Tim LaHaye. She, too, has been a public speaker for Moon functions. Women's Federation for World Peace, also headed by Beverly LaHaye, and recipient of Moon funding. Former President George Bush Sr. and one-time former CIA director received an undisclosed amount for speaking engagements from this organization, and his fee is lost somewhere in the $13.5 million conference expense line, according to the IRS records. Family Federation for World Peace, another Moon organization which held a meeting in Washington in 1996. Among the speakers at this event were Beverly LaHaye and Ralph Reed. Over 1,500 notables from around the world attended. National Religious Broadcasters. Members include Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell, Jimmy Swaggart, Tim LaHaye, Billy Graham, Bill Bright, and many others clearly associated with Moon. I'd like to mention Bill Bright. He's one of the guys who got this vision from God about the 7 Mountain Mandate, right? Pat Robertson, in the early 1980s, as Oliver North was trading guns and ammo, and who knows what else, in Nicaragua, was coordinating efforts to use Operation Blessing to help supply goods to the Contras. Allegedly, these goods included hard cash and gasoline for Contra vehicles. The head of Operation Blessing was Captain Robert Warren, who was also formerly associated with a CIA group called Operation Phoenix. Oh my goodness, that's a whole nother video. Allegedly, this was an assassination group that operated in Vietnam. Also associated with this group was, surprised, Oliver North. Pause again. Also associated with Operation Phoenix, or the Phoenix operation, was Michael Aquino, and they trained people to do horrible murders and torture and mind control, all kinds of things. It's very ugly. Okay, sorry. Okay, so here are the photos that go along with this article. The kingpins of the Unholy Alliance. Evangelists and politicians. We've got the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, founder and leader and self-proclaimed Messiah to the Unification Church and the world. Tim LaHaye, evangelist and Christian author of best-selling series Left Behind. Beverly LaHaye, wife of Tim LaHaye, author and spokesperson for several Moon-funded Christian organizations. Paul Crouch, founder and chairman of Trinity Broadcasting Network, one of the largest televangelical corporations. Bill Bright, founder and head of the International Evangelical Association, Campus Crusades for Christ, and the 7 Mountain Mandate. I added that, but it's true. Robert Schuller, pastor and televangelist from the famous Crystal Cathedral in Southern California, 33rd degree Freemason. Billy Graham, recognized worldwide as one of the most influential evangelical preachers and author and syndicated of religious columnist. Pat Robertson, television evangelist, founder of the Christian Broadcasting Network and 700 Club anchor, founder of Operation Blessing, one time presidential candidate. Reverend D. James Kennedy, founder and pastor of Coleridge Ministries, outspoken television evangelist. Reverend James Robison, TV evangelist, Life Outreach International Ministries, associated with many moon organizations. Ralph Reed, former director of the Christian Coalition and member of the conservative think tank Heritage Foundation. Gary Bauer, conservative politician and executive director of the Christian Coalition, unsuccessful presidential candidate. Dr. Dobson! What? Pediatrician, author, publisher, had to focus on the family, a Christ-centric organization and magazine. Phyllis Schlafly, Christian political activist who says a woman's place is in the home, even though she's not. Jay Sekulow, Christian political activist and attorney involved in family values issues from abortion to parents' rights. That's it. The Washington Times Foundation, a pro-Bush inaugural luncheon held in Washington, D.C., was sponsored by the Washington Times Foundation, another moon-funded group. Among the attendees were Paul Crouch, founder of Trinity Broadcast Network, Robert Schuller, Kenneth Copeland, Jerry Falwell, Don Argue, past president of the National Association of Evangelicals, Pat Boone, a former TBN board member, Billy McCormack, who was a Christian Coalition board member who actually presented Moon with an award, and Southern Baptist Convention President James Merritt. Council of 56 of the Religious Roundtable. Another Moon-associated group is called the Council of 56 of the Religious Roundtable. This group is made up of many of the same members from Reverend Moon's CNP and CRF organizations. It marries leading Moon-associated evangelicals to the CIA, the Council for Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and Freemasonry. CFR and TLC are closely tied to the Bilderberg Group. Ooh. The following list of members of the Council of 56 of the Religious Roundtable can be found here. I will leave a link below because there's a lot here. I'm going to skip over all the members. The following list of members of the Council of 56 of the Religious Roundtable can be found here. Group Watch was compiled by the Inter-Hemispheric Resource Center. Group Watch files, principals, the main members, and then there's a long list of past members of the Council of 56, which I am going to skip over. The following are a few shortened bios from the same source associated with this Roundtable of 56. Government connections. Major General George J. Keegan Jr. was the chief of the U.S. Air Defense Intelligence and a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, worked for the CIA from 1963 to 1966. General Daniel Graham, during the Vietnam War from 1967 to 1968, he was chief of the Army's Military Intelligence Estimates. 1971, Graham served as Director of Collections for the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's version of the CIA. In 1973, Graham served as a deputy to the CIA Director William Colby. From 1974 to 1976, he was the Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Groups belonging to the Roundtable include the Christian Broadcasting Network, Billy Graham Evangelical Association, Moral Majority, Christian Voice Church League of America, National Religious Broadcasters, Campus Crusade for Christ, Plymouth Rock Foundation, National Association of Evangelicals, Gideon Bible, Wycliffe Bible Associates, and Intercessors for America. Ed McAteer was sales marketing manager for Colgate-Palmolive Company when he retired to become the national field director of the Christian Freedom Foundation, an organization devoted to training evangelicals for places of leadership in government. From there, McAteer moved to the Writing Conservative Caucus, where he served as national field director until founding the Religious Roundtable. He is or was a member of the board of the Evangelical Wycliffe Bible Associates. Unity, a one-world religion? In light of the ties between nearly all Christian evangelicals with Reverend Moon, the CIA, the Council for Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bush family, and Bush Sr.'s New World Order, is it any wonder that after the September 11th tragedy, Billy Graham prayed in the name of God and Allah, as dignitaries from many faiths were gathered before him? This prayer was broadcast the world over. His call was for religious cooperation and unity of all faiths. The Trump of Reverend Moon. Franklin Graham, son of the world-renowned evangelical Reverend Billy Graham, and heir to the very lucrative and influential Billy Graham Evangelical Ministries, answer to a question by NBC's Tom Brokaw. It's very important that all the faiths, all the denominations are coming together, cooperating together, working together. It is a wonderful testimony to the spirit of America and the dedication of the American people. Billy Graham's son said that. Okay. Moon also owns the Washington Times, the conservative voice of the nation. Though this establishment should have gone under several years ago, Moon pours multiple millions of dollars annually into this paper. He also owns the publication Insight. He indeed owns many businesses and operates in media of several nations worldwide. In Central America, he's the owner of the Tempos del Mundo, Times of the World, another leading news publication, making him the conservative voice there as well. In the early 1980s, Moon was shooting for the acclaim of all Central and South America. He met political opposition from Carlos Menem, Argentina's president. His rescue came in the form of one man, that was George Bush Sr., former director of the CIA, former vice president, and former president of the United States of America. Bush was the principal speaker at the Sheraton Hotel at a Moon-sponsored event with 800 to 900 guests in attendance, giving this manipulative operative remarkable credibility overnight. Bush declared enthusiastically, quote, "The editors of the Washington Times tell me that never once has the man with the vision interfered with the running of the paper, a paper that in my view brings sanity to Washington, D.C. I am convinced that Tempos del Mundo is going to do the same thing," unquote. Both George and Barbara Bush have made several speeches in Asia in 1995 in Tokyo, Japan. During one Moon rallying function, over 50,000 pro-Moon advocates were addressed by the two. This was sponsored by the Women's Federation for World Peace. It has also been speculated that Moon and Bush were seeking joint business ventures in South America. An interesting fact is that despite over 30 years of allegations from some U.S. government officials seemingly out of the loop of Moon's connection with the Korean CIA, and as we can now see the American counterpart as well, no steps have been taken to deport him, let alone prosecute him. Conclusion. What do Reverend Moon, leading Christian evangelicals, and the American government have in common? And what does it take? And just what does this have to do with the New World Order as recoined by George Bush Sr.? There can be no doubt that these dark elements of government, industry, banking, and intelligence are leading us into their New World Order, and their influence has been extended to nearly every Christian in the world through these leading evangelicals who claim to represent Christ. Perhaps this Reverend Moon quote from August 4th, 1996 might give us a little more insight. Quote, "Americans who continue to maintain their privacy and extreme individualism are foolish people. The world will reject Americans who continue to be so foolish. Once you have this great power of love, which is big enough to swallow entire America, there may be some individuals who complain inside your stomach. However, they will be digested." Unquote. Could this be the falling away of the church so often preached by these same evangelicals? The great apostasy which will, in the last days, render much of the Christian church faithless to their original calling and subject to the manipulation, will, and prophesied plans of the Antichrist. I'm reading that sentence again because I didn't do it good. The great apostasy, which will in the last days render much of the Christian church faithless to their original calling and subject to the manipulation, will, and prophesied plans of the Antichrist. I will add another video on this topic, maybe more. But this just shows the combining of religion and politics and how we've been fooled by so many leaders that we thought were on our side, and actually they are not.
The thing is the DuPont family has members in the Council for National Policy, and of course the Ford family, Steve Forbes is a member. So that right there alone, and I should have known this was being, I didn't even talk about it. I said, you know what, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I bet this Tea Party thing's being organized by these Council for National Policy types. Lo and behold, I didn't have to even go look. There it is. Yet another, it's all connected back to them, folks. Everything in the Patriot Movement connects back to these clowns. Everything. The DuPont family, the Ford family, McDonnell Douglas nuclear power plant builders, and about 100 groups made of Washington's lawyers and lobbyists. With embarrassment, organizing all this libertarian protest is the biggest client of all, the Republican National Committee. The secret is out. You've been had, duped, snookered, and suckered. The group warning us about the New World Order is actually being led by people they're supposed to be against. Yeah, thank you. You just figured that out, huh? Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, tell me about it, brother. Yeah, Yeah, the New World Order is actually being led by people that warnings about the New World Order is actually being led by these people that are in the New World Order. Yeah, I've been up here screaming about this for 2+ years. Well, I'm telling you, people are figuring it out, folks.
Run.
There's just one name that can keep you out of hell, and it's the name of Jesus. Name of Jesus.